Hello, sweet world, and welcome to the Quest for the Best Director podcast, aka the greatest movie director ever bracket podcast, aka whatever we want to call it. I'm one of your hosts, Matthew Moore, and joining me is a guy who has stabbed quite a few vaginas with glass, Caleb Ferguson. Caleb, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing just swell. I actually really like these movies a lot, so I'm excited to get into them.
I'm excited too. So you said you're a bit sick, right?
Yeah, I'm not feeling a bit under the weather, but doing okay.
Is it contagious?
No.
You're not gonna like get me infected from Texas
Now,
to
if I cough on
Maryland.
the mic too hard, maybe don't have to be
Okay, yeah,
careful.
we'll just
You might get
don't
a
do that.
virus, a computer virus.
Oh, yikes. And also with me is a guy who was just a bit too excited to watch Street of Shame. Derek Schwarzinski. Derek, how you doing?
Pretty good. I just enjoy some, classic films. What's wrong with that?
That's what you enjoy? I think there's maybe a bit too much enjoyment of Yasumij, Derek. You know what I mean? A bit too much enjoyment of Yachan, as they call it.
I mean, she's a very intelligent woman and knows what she's going after.
Yeah, she's a
Very
hustler,
true.
dude.
Yeah,
She is
she's
a hustler. We'll talk about Yachan's hustling. But first, let me set the scene here. This is the Greatest Film Directors Ever podcast, also known as the Quest for the Best Director, recently rebranded. We are trying to figure out who is the greatest director. Each week, we'll be comparing two directors. Right now, we're looking at their 5th best movies according to theyshootpicturesdon'tthey.com. It's a great list, great website. We'll check it out. Their top 1,000 movie list. So this week, we have Ingmar Bergman, famous Swedish director, versus, I really don't want to say this name wrong, but I probably will, Kenji Mizoguchi? Is that inoffensive enough of a pronunciation?
Yeah, that wasn't too offensive, I imagine.
Okay, cool. And Kenji Mizoguchi's film that we're watching is Street of Shame, and Ingmar Bergman is Cries and Whispers. Both, once again, kind of a running theme of this podcast. A lot of people's last films, this is Kenji Mizoguchi's last film, and then Ingmar Bergman's not his last film, but it's kind of his last big film before he starts getting into television with Fanny Alexander and, of course, Seeds of a Marriage. So this is kind of his last feature-length film.
Also, it said that it was his last, explorative, kind of experimental film that he's trying to explore, human emotion in.
And if there's one man who's explored a lot of human emotion, it's Ingmar Bergman. So I think it's really interesting to kind of talk about, his how he decides to punctuate his kind of career of exploration. And with that, let's get into it. You guys want to start off with Cries and Whispers, the higher seed in our bracket?
Do you want to sum up the movie for the listeners?
Yeah, sure. So, Cries and Whispers is about this woman who is dying. Her name is Agnes. She's played by the talented Harriet Anderson, also from Summer of Monica and Smiles of Summer Nights. Great actress. And then she is being kind of visited and taken care of by her two sisters, Karine, played by Ingrid Tollén, and Maria, played by the extremely talented Liv Ullmann. And then also her maid, played by Kari Silvan, who this is kind of her one big flick, Kari Silvan. But it's cool.
She does a good job.
Yeah, that's one more film than I've ever been in. So, and as Agnes is dying from cancer, and she eventually does die. And it's kind of about all of their reactions to it. Kind of them getting closer together, but also further apart, sisters. And we're also gonna go to the Maria storyline. So, just what are you guys' initial reactions to Cries and Whispers?
I
Um,
love how they the camera work was really cool with these like really close up frontal facial shots that really like let the actors like show off their talent in a way, like conveying a very specific emotion with like a lot of micro expressions and I don't know, a very rich performance from every actor and actress because of the way they use the camera.
I think that's a really good observation. I mean, Derek talked about at the top of the show about how this is an exploration of human emotion, and I think Bergman conveys it like once again, kind of a similar theme to a couple of our other movies that we've watched recently. He conveys it through the face, right? It's almost funny. Like I think you could almost like if you look at the scenes of this film, you could almost like not even give them titles or names like for descriptions. You could literally just give us the faces the characters are making, because the scenes almost surround these facial expressions. Derek, did you ever thought?
yeah. Uh, I also noticed how like the camera always seems to be like really focused on the face, but also not just what on the face or what's happening with the face, but what the eyes are looking at. So like at the beginning, you see Karen like doing financial stuff, and what we see isn't her immediately, but the pin that she puts down and her glasses that she puts down. So it's kind of interesting. It the cameras always seem to be like hyper focused on something. What I thought was
Yeah, I think
cool.
it's a really good observation. I mean, there are some. Once again, it just like Caleb said, it's really is like people are showing off the talent. I mean, there's so many cool like moments just with like these close-ups of the face, which I never thought would be possible. And anyone have like a favorite facial expression throughout the film?
It's hard to
Um,
almost like quantify them or say like what kind of facial expression they're making because there's always like 10 emotions all at the same time.
um, the scene where Agnes, it's like just a side scene, but she's like sniffing roses, and the camera like zooms into her face, but then it just keeps zooming into like you're almost in her face.
Hmm.
Was pretty intense. And then also
Yeah,
the scene where it just uh Maria and Karen are like talking to one another, and Karen like "I hate you" speech happens. It's like it starts out like pretty far away, and you can kind of see both of her faces, and then it like switches to just like focusing on what Karen is saying and like her face, and it just keeps going closer. And it's so intense. That one
that's a
was
scene that I really want to hit on later because I think that scene is honestly like the most like that was the most notable scene in this film to me. I guess we do you want to talk about it now or do you want to keep going more general discussion?
uh, I think we can talk about it now. Then maybe if we miss something, we can hit it later.
Let's do it because I thought that scene was so cool. So I'm gonna set that scene for the audience. Their sister Karin and Mar Mallory, their sisters just died. Agnes, she died, and they're sitting at the edge of this table, kind of having this confrontation. Where Karin just spazzed out. Karin, played by Inga Thorlin, she's this very stoic, serious figure, and Mari's kind of like a more like happy-go-lucky, but also both of them still have this kind of deep sadness. Um, and Mari tried to be like very intimate, like she tried to love her sister, and she wanted to get closer to her sister, and Karin kind of just rejected her. Um, so they kind of having this confrontation afterwards, sitting at this table, and like Derek said, you get these kind of more general shots, and also you get these shots where Karin is wearing she's a redheaded woman. Sorry, Karin, not Karin. Mari is a redheaded woman, and she's wearing like red clothes. She's against this red background, right? So very much blending into the background. And similarly, Karin has black hair, has a black cloak on, like a dress on, and she is in a black background. So they kind of blend into the background. So they almost become they're indiscreet at the start of the scene. What I think is so cool is like Derek said, they just get closer and closer and closer on Karin's face, and it really shows that like when you view this image from afar, like nothing really pops out, right? It's this woman who's blending into the background. But it just shows how much you can get from just looking at the face. Because her white face pops so much with this black background. I thought that was like so fascinating.
Yeah, color was actually used very interestingly in the movie, especially with those like transitions where they would just kind of let the
Yeah.
screen be flooded with red and then have it fade away, and then it would be like a different scene.
Have you
Yeah.
guys seen Three Colors? Any of those
No.
movies? No. They do the same thing, and I always thought like that was a them original thing, and apparently Bergman just did it, 15 years before or whatever. Kieslowski, you're kind of a fraud, but it's whatever. What are
Yeah.
you gonna say, Dirk?
It was interesting you talked about the fade because I noticed at the beginning, like at the first half, like Maria, her flashback, her when she like it begins, half of her face is covered, but that's like foreshadowed, I guess. That's like the motion that like happens when there's a flashback is when like half of her face is covered when she's talking to David at the beginning, and then later when the flashback happens, it's also half covered. And she's the only one that has that where her flashback is done with half of her face covered in black, like shadow, and the other in light.
It's
So
actually
that
really
was
interesting. Do, did any of the other characters? I didn't like really think with this. Any of the other characters kind of have these sort of
no. She was the only one that happened with.
like the other characters have like anything else like that kind of like was signifying their sort of flashbacks.
Um, I didn't see anything. Well, I noticed that specifically with Anna, her flashback was kind of different in that she had like seemed to have what seemed like two, but one turned out to be just a dream. Uh, but nothing. It was kind of interesting because like nothing special happened with Anna at all. Like there was no shadows or anything in the background signifying that. Because like Anna or in Karen flashback, I noticed that like there was like a color, like something behind her. Like there's actual like scenery, and Anna just had like nothing, just blank color. I don't
That is really interesting. And but Karin, they definitely do make like specific face. I think Karin's always making like, a very stoic face whenever she's flashing back, right?
Yeah,
It's always like extremely like she's like trying to hold in like any sort of emotions. But yeah, then Anna, it's there's nothing really emblematic of her. Also wonder if that's intentional on Bergman's part, because Anna really is a character who is ignored by the rest of the character, even though it's I can almost argue even more traumatic for her than it is for the rest of them.
Do you guys think there was any like particular like meaning to the use of red as a motif in this movie? Because red pops up a lot. Do
Yeah,
you guys
uh,
think that that's like
yeah,
whenever
like
they fade back, I guess we weren't gonna say this. It's always they fade in red, right?
uh-huh.
yes. Because I looked this. Well, I researched and what Bergman apparently said one time in like an interview about is that he believes like the inner soul, the color of it is a red color, like a membraneous red. So I think that's supposed to like the flashbacks being like signified by the red is supposed to be like kind of showing that they're going into their soul, like to something that actually really affected them, or at least affects them still.
And red came up a lot besides that too, with like a lot of the interior design of the house was red, and there's a
Yeah,
red-headed woman, and there was wearing red dresses a lot and stuff.
and there was red vaginal blood being smeared on people's faces.
Oh, true.
What was up with that scene? Oh my goodness! I said other scene was like probably my favorite scene. This scene was like so for me to watch. Not just because of the grossness, but just because of how like tense
Intense.
it was.
Yeah, I was. It was legit intense.
I guess she just had like a mental breakdown. Like they have that whole long scene of like her getting undressed and how she's like bound up in like all these different layers, which like
Mm-hmm.
to me shows how like confined she
I didn't think
feels
about
and
that.
how she's restrained by society and stuff. So I guess she just had some sort of mental breakdown by being too, bound up.
But in the being stared at too, right? Where Anna is like looking at her, she looks at herself in the mirror. Coloring this is. I guess we never established who we're talking about. Karin kind of looks at herself in the mirror and she's like, Anna, stop looking at me.
Hmm.
Jeez, Karin, calm down. But maybe yeah, it's kind of like the societal pressure of always being looked at, always being judged, always having to wear all these layers. I think that's really a good observation. There was so much blood. Like, do you guys have any idea that's where that scene was going?
Nope, no idea. Originally, when she was doing that, I thought she was like going to like make herself bleed so that her husband would just like think that she was menstruating or whatever, like so that she wouldn't have to have sex with him or
That's
something.
exactly what
And
I
then she just
thought.
like starts like wiping on her face, like that's crazy.
Also, I believe that's the first time in the entire movie where she smiles.
No,
Where
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
it's when she initially stabs herself, it's like kind of like this like pain, and then it's like almost like this, like almost like sexually pleased smile.
Mm-hmm.
She's getting some sort of pleasure from this pain.
To me, it
Yeah, that was like
wasn't
a,
pleasure. It was more like relief to me. It looked like something was like released.
What do you think,
I think
Caleb?
that's another good example of like a facial expression that just has like 10 different components to it, just
Yeah,
like a blend of so many different emotions.
and I mean, like every single facial expression in this whole goddamn movie. Obviously, I think we haven't really talked about any of Mari's facial expressions, but she has some really good ones too. She also was a really creepy one where David is like analyzing her, right? I think I took some notes on something he said. Basically, like she has having this affair with this doctor, and he's kind of analyzing who she is, and he's talking how she's just so indifferent. Her wrinkles are caused by indifference, and she's sadder now, and she keeps going on and on. But it's so weird because we zoom into her face, and we don't really see him besides his mouth. It's just like this floating mouth talking in your ear. And it's so strange. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was. I thought it was interesting because at the beginning it was like her facial expression was it like almost made it fake. How like at the beginning she's like putting on like a seductive face to try and like incite him, and eventually like through him just like analyzing her, that kind of like gets stripped away
Mm-hmm.
and you're just left with this blank slate of a face.
I
I
could
thought
totally
that
see that.
it was so creepy. I was like, it was almost like she was just turning into who she actually is for a second.
It's strange you say that, dear, because I don't think you've probably seen Summer with Monica, but one of the most famous facial expressions I would say in all of cinema is by this same actor, Liv Ullmann, who was in Summer with Monica, where she does the exact same look to the camera, where it's very seductive and then it becomes kind of maniacal. So she's gotten really good at that over the years, Liv Ullmann. But you know what it also looked like to me? This is really bad. Because like it's like this really like gross like facial expression at some point where like you don't even see like the rest of her head. You know what I mean? It's literally just her face.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of looked like on Twitch they have like the emotes where it's like whatever W. You guys
Yeah.
know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about? No.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you do? Yeah, yeah. It's like everyone like shakes his like it looks like that was Liv W. Like it was the exact same thing. She's like smiling a bit, but it's like kind of cringy. That's all I could think about, which really took some of the tension out of the scene for me. I think it's really telling how in this movie, like, we've spent, despite our best efforts, we've really just spent, 20 minutes talking about facial expressions.
Yeah, I think it was definitely like the forefront, like the most impressive thing about the movie to me.
And it is a movie of faces, like we said. Like, you could almost characterize the movie by faces. What about, like, the narrative of this film? What do you guys think about that overall?
That was probably the weakest link for me, honestly. I'm not gonna lie.
Sure. What was weak about it? Just, it wasn't, like, enticing?
It wasn't enticing so much as that the characters are so unsympathetic that even the flashbacks that kind of show like these like moments that are supposed to like speak to their soul were very uninteresting and kind of unimportant to me because I just didn't care about these characters.
You don't think Anna or Agnes were sympathetic characters?
I was gonna say Agnes. See, that was like the thing is that Agnes is like the most passive character and is the most sympathetic, and then Anna's the second most passive and the second most sympathetic. So it's kind of like a movie built upon passive characters for me, like narrative wise.
Yeah, it kind of
Also,
reminds me of like Great Gatsby or something, or even like Sun Also Rises, where it's like I don't really like any of the characters except for kind of the main character, but the main character kind of just gets tossed around the whole movie, or the whole book rather. In this case, the whole movie. So it's like
I
it's
thought
hard
Maria
to.
was a kind of sympathetic character, though.
What'd you say?
I said I thought Maria was kind of a sympathetic character.
Really? I
Like
thought
she's
she was
not
the
perfect,
least. I thought Colleen was
She,
significantly more sympathetic than Marie.
yeah,
really.
Yeah, I mean, because
Maria.
you get where Colleen, like, what happened to her. I mean, like, Marie, it's just like, she's just like an asshole.
Yeah,
What happened
Maria.
to Karine that was so bad? Like to me, it just seemed like she was this salty, cranky person.
Yeah, but that's due to like both her mother never giving her any love, except for the one moment in the flashback where they share sorrow together, which is kind of dark. And if that's your only good moment with your mother, that's kind of dark.
Wait, isn't that Agnes?
Oh, no, that's Karen, I believe. But I might be thinking incorrect.
I think it's Agnes, yeah.
That's that's even worse.
Yeah, she doesn't. But my thing with Colleen is at least she's like, you get where she comes from, right? Like, where she's is this person who's constantly looked at. And also at the end, right, we have this very final interaction between Clarion and Mori, where they're talking about. I wish I had written down word for word. Agnes is like, "So, what happened this last day? That was pretty crazy, huh?" And Mori's like, "Why are you even talking about it?"
Or
Yeah.
not even why you're talking about it, but what are you talking about? Like she completely ignores the fact that they had a moment where they're like actually connecting as sisters, and a little bit more than just sisters because that was a little creepy scene. But where they're after Karine basically tells her she hates Murray, starts like I guess they start petting each other. I guess is the word for that.
Yeah, I think it's good.
That was a
Caressing.
little, yeah, caressing. That's a better word for what they were doing. And that was, I don't know, it was kind of creepy. Maybe it wasn't meant to be creepy, and I guess my values are a little weirder than or different than Bergman's. But that seemed a little bit very intense for sisters talking and connecting with one another. But
I
and
mean,
then
to be fair, we just watched a movie where last week in Day of Wrath where the mother's literally having sex with the stepson. So,
yeah, but that's the thing. I was gonna say that it felt, or I was gonna say about Street of Shame in respect to Cries and Whispers, but that was the thing. It was kind of like the drama in this is kind of similar to that movie, Days of Wrath. It was like just that was like the only narrative strength is how like intense and like soap opera, like Caleb said last time, it was.
whoa, I heavy disagree about that. Maybe we can move on to Shoot the Same so we can start fighting. That sound good?
But also about Maria,
Okay,
she
go
at
for
the
it.
beginning, what also made her super unsympathetic was that at the beginning she basically cucks her husband with this doctor who is
Yeah.
apparently this guy's friend. Like they played chess together fairly regularly, apparently, which I imagine is like friends in this time.
That's a hard
So,
game to play with someone who you're cucking, right? Like a
yeah,
lot of downtime in chess, it's not like tennis or something where you're kind of just
and
swinging it.
and not just that, she watches him like stab himself, her husband stab himself in the stomach, and just when he helps, asks for her help, she just leaves the room.
What the hell was up with that?
There's like one of two things: either that moment was too intense for her and she had to leave, or she just like was just like, no, I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think she's just really selfish. Is honestly what it is. But I thought he was dead. Did you guys not just assume he was dead after that?
No,
I did, but apparently he survived.
yeah, he
Yeah.
survived. You see him at the end when he's talking to Karin's husband.
Yeah, I know, but like, how? How did he live?
It was kind of a wimpy stab.
Yeah, it was. It was. Do better next time. Mari's husband. Jesus Christ, some people. No, but yeah. So now we ready to move on to Street of Shame?
Mm-hmm.
Ready to fight? Jerry,
Yep.
Derek, so you say that the only narrative strength is in this drama. Do you care
No,
to
I
elaborate?
said in Cries of Shame, the only narrative strength was how like intense and soap opera it was.
Wait. In Street of Shame or Cries and Whispers? You said Cries and
Cries and
Whispers.
Whispers.
Oh, okay. That was about Cries and Whispers.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
we're
would
talking about.
say Street of Shame. Like that was the thing I was going to compare them to. Is like this is kind of for me Monsieur Verdot, where it was kind of the characters are sympathetic. I understand where they're going, what they want in life, and how they're getting screwed over in life. Like, and the way we experience it isn't by seeing them experience it. We're basically experiencing them with them. We're like, where Hanai comes home and her husband's like trying to kill himself. We like feel that in a way that I don't know. I didn't feel it, anything in Cries and Whispers when like Kareen was like mutilating herself. I was just like, whoa, what the hell? When
You didn't feel
Hanai sees her
anything?
husband, I didn't feel not anything. I felt, the intense feeling of what the hell? Like I felt throughout the entire movie of Cries and Whispers. But then we get to the Streets of Shame, and it was like every like plot point that was, you know, we see Hanai see her husband kill herself, or Yumiko, her son, like basically says she's an embarrassment to her face. I was like physically feeling that. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this. I was like actually sad for these characters,
I think the characters are just a lot more sympathetic.
and that's why, because I feel a lot of sympathy for these characters in kind of the socioeconomic situation they are.
I well, I think it's interesting, right? I think these movies kind of in conjunction how they're almost exact opposites in terms of narrative structure, right? Where in Cries and Whispers, it really starts off with like kind of these vignettes, right, with each of our four women, and then it kind of turns into this shared experience, and it kind of ends on this very separate note again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where Shooter's saying the exact opposite, where it kind of starts off with this very shared experience, and then we sort of get our vignettes, and each character kind of goes their own separate ways, and they all kind of come back together at the end, you know, in a much more harmonious manner than characters in Cries and Whispers ever really did. But I don't know if that's fair to Cries and Whispers to say that there was never anything. I don't know. What do you think, Caleb?
I sort of agree with Derek. I think that like you have an emotional reaction to what's happening, but it's not like you are feeling sympathetic for them or you don't feel like you're with them. You feel more like an observer
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you don't really care that much about these people. Like you care about Agnes and Anna, but the other people
That's like half the
barely.
cast.
It's like half the cast, but it's kind of they're passive characters. The things they
Exactly.
feel, the things they feel happen like very little of the film. Like the things we experience with Agnes are her dying, which is a very intense scene. I will give
Yeah,
it
and
that.
Jesus Christ, she has some insane emotion.
But
Like,
that
oh my
scene,
god.
it goes to an intense place, not like a sad place. It's like, oh, okay, I'll not say not sad. It's sad, but not the sadness, like the existential dread of like seeing your husband try to kill himself. That I like almost physically feel alongside Hana in Street of Shame.
Hmm. I I don't think Bergman's trying to make you feel sad though. You know?
Yeah, that's the thing. He that's like the only narrative strength that I see is like these sympathetic characters that he does have, and he doesn't really do anything with them.
But I think it's because I think it's like where Kenji Mizoguchi's being pessimistic, Bergman's just being like ultra pessimistic, right? Kenji Mizoguchi's saying like, man, it's like life really sucks, but maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel. And Bergman's saying like life really sucks, and it's just gonna get worse, you know. And where I found the character sympathetic is that they all come from this mother who. So we're going back to Cries and Whispers, by the way, for the audience. I feel like it's been clear, but they they all come from the same mother, who is established at the very beginning to be really almost share all of their kind of characteristics, right? Where she sort of has Mari's sort of kind of full of life, like Mari is, you know, and alive and present are the words they use. But then she kind of has the cool. She's cold and she's cruel, like Karin, and then she's deeply sad, like all of them, right? And it almost seems like this sadness is like unavoidable. You know, it's passed on, it's inherited, which is where my sympathy comes from. It's because all of their shitty actions just come from this sadness inside.
Yeah, but that's not honestly sympathetic for me in the way that it is in like I'm gonna use A Street of Shame. Like that's like a broad, vague sympathy from like experiencing depression and whatnot. This is like in Street of Shame, it's like their situation is such that they have no options other than the ones they're choosing, and they're the worst option.
Sure. Well, we're actually jumping the gun a bit, right? Let's talk about Street of Shame. Let me give a brief overview. Street of Shame is about what, like six prostitutes? Is it six? Six sounds right. Something like that. Six prostitutes in Japan. At a time where the laws regarding whether prostitution should be legal are being heavily debated. And kind of just their lives and why we get backgrounds on why they had to become prostitutes and also, you know, what the result of this I would say decision, but it's almost like this forced decision is.
Yeah,
And then
it's definitely forced.
I think it'd be weird to talk about this movie with any sort of general terms. So maybe we can just hop into one storyline. Is there any character you guys want to start with?
Probably Mickey, because I think she's the most straightforward to deal with. Hers progresses pretty linearly.
Yeah, I like Mickey. Okay, let's talk about Mickey.
I liked her kind of quite a bit. I'm not gonna lie, because at the beginning, she seems like, you know, just the party animal who just wants to be a prostitute for the fun of it.
Mhm.
So that's like definitely, I think that was like intentional. That's what you're supposed to see. And then at the moment when she meets her dad, I noticed the music that has been like playing the entire movie cuts out.
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting because it's like that's the only character that happens with. Like that's like not the only that happens with like all the serious moments. But that's like where we first like kind of noticed that trend.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of interesting that Mickey gets that because this is the party animal, and all of a sudden they're facing their father, who basically neglected them their entire life. I feel like that's kind of where the trope came from, where like the troubled daughter turns to like prostitution or like I guess stripper.
Is that a classic?
Daddy
Yeah,
issues.
I guess. Okay, yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, like the stripper with daddy issues. I don't know if this is where it came from, but it's kind of interesting that was there.
That it exists this early on, for sure.
Yeah.
This movie was made when? Like 1950s, 1960s?
Yeah. I think it was like the 50s, maybe.
1956, yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely interesting that Kenji chose Mickey to do that. So it's just like, all of a sudden, this party animal that was just like a party animal becomes this troubled daughter with father issues who turns to prostitution, not to be a party animal, but to get back at their father for mistreating them and their mother in like a self-destructive way.
I think that's really good. Yeah, she's doing it as punishment. She's not. It seems like she's doing it for the fun of it. She's doing it for the money, but she obviously doesn't give a shit about money because she's always in debt.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. She sets it up as like party animal who just can't manage money, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's because she doesn't give a fuck about the money at all, and she's doing it because she's like living this like almost hedonistic, like almost nihilistic lifestyle. Because she's just trying to destroy herself and her father with her.
And one thing I thought was interesting about Mickey, at least I feel like she's supposed to be somewhat emblematic of America. Now, I'm not exactly sure how, but I can tell you why I think that. She's constantly being referenced in regard to, like, very typically American things. Obviously, her name is Mickey, which sounds like Mickey Mouse. I think someone even points that out at the beginning.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, Aiko says it at the beginning.
And then also when she kicks her dad out, she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is like a movie. Like, what am I? Or what's next? Marilyn Monroe or something like that, right?"
Yeah.
She makes a reference to Marilyn Monroe, which, especially in 1950s America, is like the pinnacle of America, right? Right, like in the world in 1950s. And when you think America, like, she is one of the people you are thinking of as Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, especially at this time. This is like the time of Marilyn Monroe and like at her height.
Exactly. So I was curious, why do you guys think that is?
I mean, there's a big like cultural clash going on at that time between like the American government, which was basically like trying to make new laws and kind of impose their will on Japan, and then sort of like the old way of doing things. So, because that's such an important aspect of the narrative and the setting, it makes sense to have a character be like emblematic of that.
Then why is it Mickey? Why do you think it's Mickey's storyline that is the one who's emblematic of?
I think it's because of her age and also of her like economic situation. Because we find out that her father's like well off, and those are the people who are going to be buying American goods, American like movies and stuff at this time. Probably it's going to be the rich. So she's the most exposed as being a young person exposed to these things. Who's going to be like kind of the banner for being a mix of traditional Japanese culture and this new foreign culture.
And even like the clothes she wears, like she's basically wearing like yoga pants, right?
Yeah,
I think these very tight sweatpants. But what do you think it says about America? I couldn't quite figure out.
I think that's also why she's at the beginning she's portrayed as very curvaceous and like, well, not because that's supposed to be like what America like women are. It's like proud to show off their body at this time and like well figured.
But then she's not very successful, which I find to be interesting as well, right? It is curious, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she's American who appears to be lost, but as you kind of said, Derek, it very quickly we eventually realize that she is doing exactly what she wants to be doing, you know. Anyways, let's move on from Mickey. Caleb, you can choose the next character. Who are we talking about next?
Um, Perhaps the one that kind of has I don't remember their names very well, but the one whose ongoing drama is that her son comes to visit her and then kind of like sees her trying to seduce a man, and then
Yumiko.
they kind of have
yeah.
that like tumultuous relationship.
Yeah, so Caleb kind of just summarizing his explanation of the character. Yumeko, she is a person from the older side, and she is not the one who tries to get married, right? No, she's not.
No, that's
No, yeah. But she does. So she has a son, and she's hoping that she can kind of connect with her son, and then they can live together. And the son basically rejects her, saying that she is an embarrassment, and that I think I have exactly quote somewhere. Um, he says something along the lines like, "A parent's responsibility is to raise a child," you know. And then it's really interesting because after this big conversation with her son, we have this, you know, well, maybe we'll talk about this later, this music cue, but I want to get into that later. First thing, what are you guys' like overall thoughts on the Yumeko storyline?
like
It's very sympathetic. Like I can feel for the son and I can feel for Yumiko.
yeah, that's the best part is that you can see where each person involved is coming from. Like, why Shuichi is like embarrassed is because he's spent his entire life with everyone around him knowing what his mother has to do to like raise him, and kind of like that there's no choice otherwise, which is super depressing for Shuichi and embarrassing because what is he gonna do? Like being raised this way, try and like make his mother go another way because like there's no other choice. That's the only way she can. So he's kind of stuck. But then Yumiko's stuck because this is the only way she can raise her son. But this is just gonna further like distance, like separate the two and like distance them.
Yeah, it is a rough spot. And then she ends up going insane, right? Which is
Yeah,
the most depressing part. Like, she seems like almost like a doomed character, right? Which
yeah,
I'm sure if I watched the movie, it would just hit me like how she never really stands a chance. Which I find very compelling. Which is made even worse by the fact that she's replaced with is it Shizuko?
yeah.
Yeah.
Shizuko.
I mean, as Yumiko leaves, she's supposed to be Shizuko, who is like this young girl whose father's injured, and Shizuko's a virgin. She's like making money for her father. She's kind of put it at the very end of the movie, and it's kind of Yumiko's storyline really emphasizes like how Shizuko's done for, essentially. She's
Yeah,
not.
and also I found that interesting that she's a virgin because Yori says like I've 10 minutes or so before they Shizuko like starts working as a prostitute for the first time that her virginity was sold for 2,000 yen.
Yeah.
That I was like, and then we see like Shizuko very young, and she's like basically being groomed to be, the next fresh product, which is even darker. And we just hear that her virginity is only worth $20. $20 basically.
It kind of reminds you of The Wire, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
have
for sure.
It's like it's very kind of cyclic, like very pessimistic. Like they're never really gonna get out, but so all they can really do is try to be happy while they're stuck there. Sort of view on it. In fact, speaking of The Wire, maybe this is a good time to transfer to you. Have her on our cheat sheet as Yasumi's Derek. I have her down as Yatchan. Which one are we calling her?
Yeah, you can call her either, I suppose, because they interchangeably call her either.
I like Yatchan. It's more fun. We have Yatchan. She's like the number one prostitute. She's beautiful. And she's a finesser. She saves all of her money. She tricks money out of guys. She's this guy, Aoki, who wants to marry her. And she's just constantly getting him to give her money because for medical bills and stuff like that. And she's just saving, saving, saving. She's trying to get out of the prostitution business. What do we think of Yatchan?
I found her interesting because like she had the potential to kind of be like an antagonist almost, but I think that they presented her in such a way that I found her fairly sympathetic.
Yeah, it's hard to say that someone is like doing something morally bad when their goal is to no longer be a prostitute, right? And also, it helps the guy that she's kind of finessing is a thief, right? He's been
Yeah.
embezzling money from his work. So that helps too, I would go to say. Derek, what are your thoughts?
I thought it was also interesting that she's not just, finessing this one guy. She's also, she has like, her plan goes like further back. She basically gets this, the owner of Nico Nico Do, which is like the furniture store,
Mm-hmm.
to basically have to run away because he owes everyone too much money because she's been getting him to give him money, her money.
And then she takes over that store, right?
Yeah, and then she takes over the store. So it's kind of, I thought she was sympathetic because obviously we learn that she's spent her entire life in poverty, and this is just, and then she gets like sold to be a prostitute. So this is just the only choice she has to be more than just a prostitute.
Yeah, for those of out there who haven't watched Street of Shame but have watched The Wire, you can definitely think of her as kind of like a beautiful Japanese Omar Little, where she's definitely always trying to finesse money sometimes ways that should be wrong, but you kind of always feel for her and kind of take her side. And she even has a line in there. I don't know if you caught this, Derek, but some Caleb hasn't seen The Wire, so only Dirk would have caught this. But she says, "I sell my body like you sell merchandise. It's the same business."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
I
such
was
an Omar line, isn't it?
yeah, that
I think Omar has a line in The Wire where it's like, what's his line? It's like it's the same thing, isn't it? You know, you got a briefcase, I got a gun, but we're both stealing. Something like that. I'm
Yeah.
giving the quote injustice, but it's like, man, David Simon owes my boy Kenji some money because he definitely took that quote. Yeah, I love Yat-chan, and I think it's great how she does get out, right? And there is some optimism there, but
yeah. The
She
little
gets-
optimism there is in the story.
the reason she gets out is because she's constantly planning, right? And even though she gets out, she almost dies trying, right? That shouldn't be ignored. This
Yeah,
guy
that
Aoki,
is-
when he finds out that she's been finessing him this whole time, he literally tries to murder her.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most intense scenes. There's a lot in this movie that was just like, wow, I can't believe that happened. I feel so bad for this person. But that scene where he chokes her out, I was like, that was so brutal. 'Cause it was like no music, it just still, just like he just like throttling her on the ground. It was just so much.
Yeah. And then she gets saved, eventually by the owners of the place. What do you guys think of these owners?
At the beginning, when they say like, we're looking out for you. These other people who are trying to take your job, what are you going to do without us? That was, and then at the end when they say that after Yumiko goes insane, and you know Yasumi just like got throttled and stuff. That was just it was so sinister.
Yeah, that's a good word for it, sinister. Yeah, that's a quote he says a couple times. He says at least a few times you point out, maybe one more time, where he's always like, "We're the only ones looking out for you," and it's like, if you were looking out for these women, they wouldn't be prostitutes. Hate to break it to you, buddy. Yeah, I think the owners are interesting because like they should be sympathetic, or they should not sympathetic. They should be like likable because they are helping out our characters. Also just like they're the ones that got him here in the first place.
Yeah, but they're also really creepy people.
Yeah.
Their attitude.
I kind of think that they were not unlikable. Like I wouldn't say they were likable, but to me it seemed like what they were doing was just a fact of life.
Yeah, at this point, it is like a fact of life. That's like probably another impressive thing is that it's just the way things have to be done.
But
It's like before then, prostitution was just what people did. Just got to get
Yeah.
the money you got to get. Someone has to do it. But then it's just like at the same time, it's still like these women basically are being taken advantage of, like kind of inadvertently by being forced into these things through like I don't know socioeconomic reasons, like their father selling them into prostitution, etc., and stuff like that. For Shizuko, her father gets like injured in the mine, and she just has to become a prostitute. Otherwise, her family will starve.
yeah, exactly. Or like obviously with Yumiko, she's just trying to help her son, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it all sucks. We have, I think, one more big character to talk about, which is Hane, right?
yeah, Hanai, yeah,
Hinai, sorry.
and I'm probably
No.
Hane, probably Hana, Hane,
Yeah.
probably incorrect no matter what.
I think you even go Hannah if you really want to. If you're really feeling like a whitey. Um, she has a husband who is sick, and they have a child together, and the husband's sick and doesn't have work because he's sick. So she's actually literally supporting the family. What do you guys think about her storyline?
To me, I think that that's kind of what makes the whole business seem less evil to me is that like these women are able to support themselves and their families. Like even though like they don't love it, it still provides a way for them to provide for themselves. And there's also scenes where like when the woman goes and tries to get married, like the alternative to what she's doing is like way worse, and she makes way more money being a prostitute than she
Yeah,
would like going and working for somebody else. So like
I think
it
there's a really good quote
it's
with
not an
that.
ideal situation, but it's not that bad, it seems.
I think there's a really good quote with that, Caleb, where someone says that like the only difference between like prostitution and being a wife is that one gets paid hourly and the other one gets paid monthly. It was so funny. But
yeah.
yeah,
After that was after Yori comes back, so she tries to get married, but the guy just uses her for like labor,
yeah,
free
she does
labor,
get married.
basically.
She's an indentured servant, essentially. Yeah, it's not a great look. Um, I think it raises questions: what can these women do? They're just stuck there, you know.
Yeah, they either have to let their family starve because a cheaper job would not support their family, or they have to, you know, keep going on and hopefully don't get choked out to death by a customer.
Yeah, or like I think another part of that Yacht-chan storyline is that she's she is kind of viewed negatively, right? She's called Lady Shylock, which is a reference to the antagonist of Shakespearean play Taming of the Shrew, right? So when you're always being called like Shylock, probably not the best feeling, you know? She's being labeled as a villain for literally trying not to be a prostitute anymore,
Yeah.
which is nuts. Um, do you guys have any like overall thoughts on the film, or maybe like little things you want to talk about?
Um. Yeah. I would notice that the cinematography in like Cries and Whispers was like face focused.
Hmm.
In Street of Shame, it was kind of like the exact opposite. It was like the people, not the face, and the surroundings. So like the angle is always like capturing what the environment is doing. So it's like when Shuichi like tells his Yumiko that he wants nothing to do with her, pretty much, and like is just too embarrassed to be involved with her. He like runs down the street, and the shot isn't. It stays where it was and just turns and looks down the street as he runs away, and Yumiko tries to catch up, and she can't catch up. So just a long shot of the entire road. I thought that was like exactly what the film was about, kind of like shot wise.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think like I love how you compare it to Cries and Whispers because in a lot of ways these women are faceless, right? They don't. Although we care about their emotions, it's clear that society doesn't. You know,
Yes.
you hear about all these debates that are happening in the world, and it's not like people are really caring about the women who are actually prostitutes, right? They're caring about economic things. They're caring about, no one's asking these women, right? We don't ever see like a police officer come or like a lawman come and be like, "How do you feel about life? Do you think prostitution should be illegal, et cetera, et cetera?" And we know that
Exactly.
they're very well spoken on whether it should or should not be.
And
These
that's the
women are
only
faceless.
yeah, that's the only thing that was interesting. The only person who ever asked them if they think prostitution should be a thing is Miyazaki, the police officer at the beginning, and he only did it at the very beginning when it's just like the idea of prostitution being illegal is the idea, and he only asked Otane, which is like the servant, Yumiko, and I believe Hanai, and they're all of them are like, that'd be good. I could go be with my husband or be with my son, or and like the idea of it is good is very positive for them. But it's their positivity is based upon like the ideas of what could happen, like the positive things that could happen, not the fact
Yeah,
that Chuichi is going to leave her or Yumiko or Hanai's husband's going to try and kill himself.
and it's also based on like possibly false promises, right? Where like they'll all get an apartment. I think is one of the things that
Yeah,
they're talking about, which we don't ever establish if that's true or not, but like it's unlikely. I think it's fair to say.
yeah, for sure.
Another thing I want to talk about is this music that we hear at the beginning with like all these. It's very strange, like kazoos in there and violins and
Oh yeah,
xylophones. I'm not like a big music guy, so correct me if any of those instruments weren't actually in there. I think, and Derek or Caleb, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. That music showed up 3 times throughout the film.
yeah. I believe it was 3 times.
Once at the beginning, once when Yumiko son basically tells her off,
Yeah,
um, and then at the very end when we get this close up of Shizuko's face, which is something I really want to talk about.
yeah.
So, what's up with this music?
I think it's um kind of I think it's supposed to be like the theme of kind of the idea is like prostitution has an effect, like a negative effect on these people and so on. I think it's kind of like it's supposed to like accentuate the theme. Like this is what happened kind of deal. And that it being at the opening is kind of like this is the beginning of the story that's about to happen kind of thing. This is what happened for these kind of people.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it's like this is Japan, right? Like,
Yeah, this is Japan. These are people. These are the prostitutes that have to live this way. Here's the picture.
yeah, 'cause the beginning it's like we see Japan, like, oh, we're in Japan. This is Japan. And then when we see it in the breakup, it's like, what? This is Japan, you know? And
Yeah,
then what I think is the most interesting one is this closing shot of this woman looking at the camera, which we talked about a lot about looking at the camera in the last two or three podcasts. Um, this is Japan. It's this girl Shizuko getting forced into prostitution, and if we were to go with that hypothesis of other podcasts that any looked at the camera in the 15 to 20 years following the Holocaust as a reference to these Holocaust shots, um, I think it's fair to assume that this look to the camera is a look of a different kind of concentration camp, right?
yes,
These women are being forced to do labor to the point where they don't get to see their family anymore. The only people they really have are each other. Um, and they're kind of at the mercy not of Capo, but of these men who will sometimes forcibly try to kill them. This is Japan, and frankly, this is America too, right? Not to reference childish or anything, but I thought that shot was really interesting.
yeah, definitely. I agree.
Kid, how you feeling?
Hmm, I don't know. What do you guys think about the if we had to compare these two, which way are you guys leaning?
Want to get into that?
Sure.
Let me make sure I don't have any
I
final
feel pretty
thoughts on
strongly
this.
about which one I like more.
Interesting, because I don't.
I do.
Derek does too. I think I know where Derek's going. So Derek, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I. All right, I'm gonna say Cries and Whispers. I liked the. I thought the shot composition was like how it uses like the close-ups on the face to intensify like the emotions that are happening. Like, oh my god, I can't believe this woman just like mutilated herself and stuff. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was really good and effective. It really accentuated like the human emotions that we're supposed to witness. But that's the thing. I felt like I was just witnessing the story. Whereas Street of Shame, I felt I was like sharing this film. I was there. I was pretty much as close to these people as I could possibly be. So I definitely Street of Shame.
Hey Caleb, where you at?
To me, Cries and Whispers, has to take it simply because I think the shots and stupendous acting were so like stimulating and engaging. That even though the story wasn't necessarily as sympathetic, I still felt like just from a visual standpoint, like enthralled. And I think that like the narrative and characters were a lot more sympathetic in Street of Shame, but ultimately like it was a great movie. I just wasn't quite as engaged.
Oh no. It's interesting because I was going in here leaning towards Cries and Whispers, but Derek really talked up Street of Shame for me. Oh jeez. This is not great podcast material with me just thinking. Um I love Bergman. I don't know much about Kenji Mizoguchi, but I can't let that affect my decision. I think both movies are amazing, right? These are definitely two of like the better movies we've seen, right?
Yeah,
I would
I
have
would
something
agree.
like Faust and Monster of Verdot when it comes to like I think these are stronger than either of the movies, like either Sacrifice or Day of Wrath, in regards to last episode. Um if I had to choose one, I guess I would go with I guess I'll go with Street of Shame. Oh my gosh. Doing it. Yeah. I'll go Street of
Woo!
Shame. I
My boy
think
Kenji wins.
Street of Shame is barely the better movie. I love Ingmar Bergman. In fact, I just went to see one of his movies like last week in his cool Dupont Underground. I felt like a real patrish. But I guess Street of Shame takes it. um, yes.
Upset. See what seeds Kenji? Like 26, right?
Let's see. Ingmar Bergman was seed 8, which means that Kenji was 25. That is an upset.
Upset.
Caleb's upset. Caleb, how you feeling?
I'm fuming.
He's fuming. When interestingly enough, now we have all voted wrong in at least one of the weeks. Well, actually, I don't remember which week I voted week 1, but Caleb or Derek voted for Monster of Verdot, and our Caleb voted for Cries and Whispers. So, something to think about. But next week, let's talk about next week. This is actually one of our shorter podcasts, but Caleb's sick, so it's okay. What are you guys thinking? We could do Billy Wilder versus Robert Bresson. We could do Louis Buñuel versus Michelangelo Antonioni. We could do Ozu versus Howard Hawks. We could do Martin Scorsese versus Fritz Lang. That actually seems kind of fun.
Let's do John Ford.
You want to do John Ford versus Sergei Eisenstein? Okay. We'll get it over with. We'll do John Ford versus Sergei Eisenstein.
Wait, is that the long one?
It's not long. It's just I don't know. I don't love Strike. I've seen it before. I'm usually not a person that's too negative towards movies though, so I'm gonna try to look for the positives in it. But so we'll see. It's not too long though. It's just a couple hours, I think. It's just that it's an experience. So I guess that's all we have for now. You guys have any final words? Any closing thoughts?
Mm,
uh, Still not as big a fan of Bergman as I think y'all are.
I love Ingy Berg. Just because Derek said that, I want to change my answer, but it's fine. Really quick, if you guys could recommend any of the 8 movies you watched so far, what would it be?
Monsieur Verdot.
Derek says Monster of Verdot. Caleb, how about you?
let me look at the list. I gotta get them all in front of me.
Got The Shining, Great Expectations, Cries and Whispers, Shoot of Shame, Faust, Monster of Verdot, The Sacrifice, Day of Wrath.
I would have to say either Cries and Whispers or Faust.
Both great movies. I'm gonna go The Sacrifice, just because I think maybe it's not the best movie on this list, but I think it's arguably the most interesting movie on this list, and that it's something you could talk about. I think for a very, very long time.
Hmm
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Okay, so until next time, I'm Matthew Moore. I'm here with Caleb Ferguson and Derek Schwarzinski. Have a nice have a nice night, and have a nice wife. That's good too. And remember to watch more movies.